Say something on the record. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, good morning, Mark. So let's get started. So today's topic, which I want to discuss today, is Mishloach Manos. Now it's really, these topics we started a couple months ago, they were a little far away from Purim, but now we've just got a few weeks before the big day. So, some of this will be pretty relevant pretty soon. So let's just learn a Gemara. We're going to raise some issues in that Gemara, and then hopefully, as we come to a better understanding of this mitzvah, maybe we'll be able to answer some of those questions and get a better understanding of a lot more than just these questions. But let's get started. So the Gemara in Megillah, which talks about Mishloach Manos, there's basically only one Gemara. It's from Daf Zayin Amud Aleph to Zayin Amud Beis, with a long story in between. We'll skip, but if it looks confusing, it's the bottom of Amud Aleph here in this first picture, and then the top of Amud Beis in the second picture. So let's jump in. So the Gemara says right after the two dots, Tani Rav Yosef, Mishloach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu, that the pasuk says you should give Mishloach Manos, you should send Manos, each person to their friend, Shtei Manos L'Ish Echad. So what's the minimum level chiyuv? You give two Manos, because it's in plural, two, let's call it gifts, from one person to their friend. You only have to give to one person, and that's because Rashi explains Ish L'Re'ehu makes it sound like there's one person to one friend. Okay, so that's the bare minimum chiyuv. Matanos Evyonim Shtei Matanos Shnei Bnei Adam. Not our topic today, but Matanos Evyonim, you have to give two Matanos to two different people, meaning one gift to each person. Fine, period. So now we have examples of these gifts, and the examples are going to be where things get interesting. So says Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, or says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya Sharda Le Rabbi Yoshaya Itma de Iglatilsa. So first of all, who are these people? So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya is the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. They were both the Nesiim, so incredibly wealthy, Jew and Talmud Chacham. So he sends to Rabbi Yoshaya an Itma de Iglatilsa. He sends him a bone of a third-born calf. Apparently, third-born calves are the most tasty. I don't know if that's the case nowadays, but it was thought to be that the third-born calf was the most tasty. So he sent a bone of the third-born calf. I don't know, a good steak, the garva de chamra, and he sent a jug of wine. So that's what he sent. So what was the response from Rabbi Yoshaya? Shalach le kayamt banu rabbeinu umishloach manos ish l're'ehu. Umatanos le'evyoni. So here's where things get a little bit tricky. That he responded back to him, you have fulfilled with what you sent, Mishloach Manos and Matanos le'evyoni. Now, that's our gears in the Gemara, that somehow he fulfilled both Mishloach Manos and Matanos le'evyoni. Now, the reason that this gears is hard to understand is because, first of all, you have to figure out, it assumes maybe that you're able to fulfill two chiyuvim at once. Number two, it's hard to understand what Matanos Evyonim has to do with this, because he only sent to one person. And we just said that he sent in order to fulfill Matanos Evyonim, you have to send to two different people. So if you look at Rashi over here, what was his real response? He says, Kayamt banu hachi garsinan, this is the correct girsa. Kayamt banu rabbeinu umishloach manos. Get out the words of Matanos Evyonim. Matanos Evyonim should not be in our Gemara. Dehatre manusika, all he said was fulfilled the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos. You sent two things. You sent a jug of wine. You sent meat. So therefore, you fulfilled Mishloach Manos. But Rashi tells you basically to take out the words Umatanos Evyonim. You see over here, there's an aleph, two alephs over here. One references you to the Hagos Habach, and the other one references you to the Hagos of the Gra. Both of them say the same thing, to take out the words Umatanos Evyonim. That should not be there, and that's the girsa of most Rishonim, that these words Matanos Evyonim are superfluous, not just superfluous, but are just incorrect. They shouldn't be there. Take them out. Good. There's one Rishon, though, who disagrees. At least one Rishon, but the one Rishon we'll focus on over here. The Ritva has a different girsa than we have, and a different girsa than most Rishonim. He quotes the whole story, and he says, Garas Rashi, Zal, Shalach lan kayamt banu rabbeinu mishlach manos. So he says what we just said, that you fulfilled mishlach manos, meaning, and not Matanos Evyonim. Upirish dehacha manos ika, and he explains over here, you sent two things. You sent a food and a drink. By the way, that's significant because it tells you that mishloach manos can be a drink, right? You can send wine as mishloach manos. That's a question some people ask every year. Can I send a drink for mishloach manos? The answer is yes. That's what you see from this Gemara. The lo garas hadar shalach leihu, and he takes out different words which aren't in our text but were in the Ritva's text. But says the Ritva, I don't like what Rashi did to our Gemara. In all of the nuschos we have, meaning the Ritva is looking at his, texts of the Gemara in front of him. He says in all of our Gemaras over here, this is the girsa which we have. Kayamt banu Rabbeinu umatanos le'evyoni. What was the response? You tried to fulfill Mishloach Manos, but he said back to him, you did not fulfill Mishloach Manos, you only fulfilled Matanos le'evyoni. This is only good enough to fulfill Matanos le'evyoni. Why should that be? Perush shelo haisa yakara hachura be'enav, because the gift was not yakar, it was not fitting enough in his eyes, it wasn't expensive enough in his eyes. Ve'amar she'ena matan la'adam kamohu. That's not a gift fitting for someone like you. You're the nasi. The nasi, the most wealthy person in the land. Bill Gates sends you a gift. So if Bill Gates sends you a gift and you're hoping that he's gonna, this is gonna be an incredible gift, and he sends you just a steak and a jug of wine, so that's a little bit of a letdown. And so for that reason, you did not fulfill your mitzvah of mishloach manos. And then what happened? So this is the Ritva's text of our Gemara. Hadar shalach lei. Then there's another story, which is not found in our Gemara, but the Ritva says, then there's another story. Kilomar, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Gufe. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, the same one who sent last time, sends another gift. He doubles down and he says, okay, I'm going to fix my mistake. What did he send? Igla tlisa'a utlaskar beyain. He sends a whole third-born calf, meaning last time he gave just a steak. This time he's sending an entire cow and 3 jugs of wine, not just one. So shalach lei kayamt ban rabbeinu mishloach manos ish t're'ehu. Now you fulfilled the mitzvah of mishloach manos. Kilomar shezu hachura haruya lecha. This is a gift fitting of you, the nasi. Okay, so that's Rashi and the Ritva. Not just Rashi though, but most Rishonim versus the Ritva. When you're a really, really wealthy guy, and you send a steak and a bottle of wine, is that sufficient to fulfill mishloach manos? So most Rishonim say yes, and then we have this Ritva over here who says, no, absolutely not. If again you're Bill Gates and you're sending $100 gift, so that's not so impressive. So we'll get back to what exactly is behind that machlokas. Maybe we'll get a better understanding of what's going on there. Keep that in the back of your minds. Let's continue the Gemara. There's this whole story over here. I showed you where we're skipping. It's a whole story. It doesn't really add to the sugya of mishloach manos, not too much. So we're going to skip it. But then there's this line over here where near the end, which is also going to be very significant. So Abaye bar Avin, after the bracket, Abaye bar Avin, Rabbi Chanina bar Avin. So 2 sons of Avin, I guess, Abaye and Reb Chanina. What would they do for mishloach manos? Mechalfi suudasaihu lehadadi. They would switch. I'll actually let anyone want to translate that, because we'll see it's not such a simple translation. Mechalfi suudasaihu lehadadi. Anyone want to take a stab at it?
Alternate.
Say again.
Alternate. When they
okay. Right. So Rabbi Schwartz is saying what we'll see. Rashi here says they would alternate their suudas one with the other. What does that mean? That would mean, let's see, Rashi, Michlevi Sudasaihu, Ze'ochel im Ze bePurim shel shana zu. So Reuven would go by Shimon and eat the Suda by Shimon on 1 year. V'shniya soy chaveru imo. And on the 2nd year, Shimon would go to Reuven's place, meaning they would alternate years. That's how Rashi learns. That's how Rabbi Schwartz learns. Most Rishonim have a different understanding.
They just sent each other their meals.
Yeah, that's what I would have said. It says Jacob, what does it mean? Michlafi. Michlafi, like chiluf is to switch, exchange, exactly. I'll send to you, you send to me. Most Rishonim explained they were both not very well-to-do. They had very little money. So they said, how are we going to make it that we both have what to eat and we also will fulfill our mitzvah? I've got my little meal, you've got your little meal. Let's just switch meals and we'll fulfill mishloach manos ish t're'ehu, and we'll both have a suda. Basically, we'll still have what to eat. So that's what most Rishonim say. This Rashi actually is very surprising, right? I'm going to eat by you 1 year, and you're going to eat by me the next year. If that's the case, one of us is not fulfilling the mitzvah mishloach manos ish t're'ehu. Right. Meaning, so if you look in the Beis Yosef, he's very bothered by this. He says, what's going on with Rashi? Beis Yosef says in source 3, the Rashi pirish michlavi sudasaihu ze'ochelim ze bePurim shel shana zu v'shniya soy chaveru imo. Right. So he says, like Rashi said, like Rabbi Schwartz translated, Because it is very difficult to imkain lo hayu mekayim mishlach manos yisraelu. One of the two people, whoever's okay, so one guy's giving his suda to the other. The host is fulfilling the mitzvah, but the guest, how is the guest fulfilling the mitzvah? Be'im tomar, maybe you'll tell me shayu sholchin manos yisraelu. Maybe you'll tell me, okay, besides for that, they sent mishlach manos also. This is just telling you a story. They happened to eat by each other, but they would also make sure to send mishlach manos besides for what's going on in this story. Imkain my asal ashma'ina. Then what's the story coming to teach you? Meaning, what? It just tells us which Amora like to eat by whose house and telling us historical who was friends with who. Like what? The story is meaningless. It should not be in our Gemara if it's not coming to teach some sort of halachic point.
Could it be if you're providing a mishteh for someone that would be mishlach manos?
You're saying, but what about for the guest? I mean, how is the guest fulfilling his mitzvah?
No, the guest sent over food. So he's fulfilling mishlach manos, and the host, therefore, is serving him the food, and that's how he's doing mishlach manos.
Oh, so Rabbi is saying, okay, so it just means the host would always be mekayim the mitzvah by doing that, and then the other guy would send mishlach manos. Did I understand correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you definitely could say that. I guess it's a question why it says michlef bisu dasayu be'adayu, meaning they would alternate, as though alternating is somehow significant. You could theoretically do it, just one would be the host all the time. And then that would just tell you, that person's fulfilling it. It sounds like the michlafi may be, the way the Beis Yosef understood, that somehow alternating is going to have relevance for their kiyum of mishlach manos. So those are just two questions. What's going on at this machlokas, Ritva, and everyone else about the Nasi sending, a small gift, not a small gift, but not a gift worthy of his regular gifts. And then two, what's going on with this Rashi?
It's alternating year by year.
Yeah, that's how Rashi learns. 1 year you come by me, next year I'll come by you. Good.
Well, obviously they had a different girsa, but I think what prompts, maybe with the Ritva, maybe what prompted him is like, what is the point in our girsa? He sends something, and Rabbi Oisha says, you fulfill the mitzvah. I mean, what is he adding to what we said before? So it seems like there must have been something that people were missing and they were trying to fill in the blanks. Because otherwise, what is he doing? The guy sends a mishlach manos. The Gemara says a very simple, straightforward point. He sends him the thing, and he says, you fulfill the mitzvah. What's the big chiddush?
I hear. And Jacob's saying, well, so what do we learn from that story from your Yasher Kayach?
What?
You're saying what? You said Yasher Kayach, you fulfilled the mitzvah. What are you telling me? That's obvious.
So I guess there must have been something that people were bothered maybe by that, and maybe they were trying to look at the girsas or whatever. Something prompted a much fuller response, because this seems to be totally superfluous. I mean, I know the Gemara does say things like that, and other, obviously, but it's not adding anything.
I think the story is saying that you can fulfill mishlach manos through a suda. That's what it's saying. And even though only one of them fulfilled it each year, but that's how he fulfilled mishlach manos. He would invite somebody over, and and you can. I think that's what it's saying.
Right. I think Jacob was picking up on the first story, meaning
the first, right in the beginning.
When he sends the steak and the wine.
Pull up the text.
Yeah. When he sends the steak and the wine, so Jacob's saying the response was, "Kayamt ban Rabbi mishlach manos Yisrael," according to most Rishonim. You fulfilled your mitzvah. So Jacob was saying, according to our text, what's that adding? Obviously he fulfilled his mitzvah. He sent two things.
Oh, but it could be the liquid.
Isn't another element of the juxtaposition maybe a conversation about sort of a rich man, poor man conversation? In the first half, we're talking about, very opulent types of gifts that are intended to fulfill them. And in the second half of it, we're talking about, for lack of a better way of saying it, how can you achieve it in sort of a bare minimum perspective?
Right. So you're saying that, meaning so what's the answer to Jacob's question? What's the chiddush in the first part?
Well, the whole idea is that there's, for lack of a better way of almost saying it, there's a hidra mitzvah, there's a there's a way of doing it that's sort of above and beyond the call of duty. But let's not forget, there's still a way of achieving it, even in sort of a minimalistic approach.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying the answer, according to our gears of Kayam Ban Rabbeinu, fulfill your mitzvah is, you were Yotzei. It was maybe you would have thought like the Ritva that you have to give something much more extreme if you're Bill Gates, and the answer was no. You send a steak and a bottle of wine, you're Yotzei even if you're Bill Gates.
Right. There's a Mahadrin and there's a not type of approach.
Okay, I hear. I'll also note one other thing which they pull out is that maybe the Chiddush was you're Yotzei even when you send a drink. Maybe that you would have thought only food items would work.
Right.
The Kiddush was, hey, you sent wine, that's still good enough.
Right. Even the fact that it has to be food, it says shtei manos. Maybe you could send a car and a TV set or something, and it doesn't, you don't know what manos are until it's a story.
Beautiful. So let's actually, I want to jump off of what Rabbi Schwartz just said, because that's actually the next source we have over here. So I just wanted to talk about what you're supposed to send. Trumas Hadeshin was asked this very question. So the Trumas Hadeshin was Rav Yisrael Isilis, I think. He was 1500s, a Kabbalah, no, excuse me, he wasn't the Kabbalist. He wrote a Shiloh Tshuva Sefer in the 1400s. I'm looking at my notes now. He's one of the mainstays of Ashkenazi Psak. So the Trumas Hadeshin is quoted left and right by the Ramah, who writes the Ashkenazi Psak, and his Shiloh Tshuva Sefer, which is the Trumas Hadeshin, everyone points out is actually he wrote his own questions. I guess his Balabatim didn't have so many shilas for him, and he had what to say. So he wrote his own questions and answers, and then got to say what he wanted to. So some of his questions are very far out there.
His publisher needed a minimum.
Exactly. There weren't enough pages with the 24 questions he was asked. So actually, Trumas Hadeshin, if I recall correctly, the reason he called it that is that the gematria of Deshen is 354, and he has a total of 354 questions in his Sefer. It just happened to work out. There were 354 questions. That's because he wrote how many questions there would be. So then that way you get a good Sefer name. Fine. So he says as follows. She'ila. Bnei Adam hasholchin lechavereim bepurim chalukim, excuse me. People who send to their friends on Purim, a chaluk is, let's say, a shirt, besadinim and sheets, uchai gavna, whatever you send a nice gift from Bed Bath & Beyond. Yotzi midei mishlach manos alo. Are you yotzei mishlach manos when you buy someone, a nice bowl, some sheets, a shirt, etc.? So Tshuva says the Trumas Hadeshin, Yera'eh de ein yotzim bahen. You are not yotzei with these things. The nira ta'am de mishlach manos hu. What's the reason for mishlach manos? Kidei sheyehei l'chol echad dai b'safek l'kayim hasuda kedina. So the Trumas Hadeshin, I'll tell you the reason for the mitzvah of mishlach manos ishlerehu. The goal is that each and every individual should have enough to go and fulfill the su'uda of Purim kedina, as is proper. So that's a big chiddush, meaning the mishlach manos isn't just a separate mitzvah. The goal of mishlach manos is to make sure everyone is able to fulfill their mitzvah of su'udas Purim. Kidimashim b'gemara perakama, like the Gemara says in the Gemara we just read, Abai bar Avin, Rav Chanina bar Avin, havu michalfim su'udasayu bi'adadi. They would switch their meals with each other. V'nafki b'hu mishlach manos. He's going to learn that like Rashi, meaning they would trade their meals with each other to go and fulfill mishlach manos. So Alma de Taima Mishum Seudahi. So what do you see? That the reason for this is because of Seuda. Meaning they were switching their Seudas with one another. So the Trumas Hadeshin makes a deal. Oh, they're switching their Sudas, whatever their Suda they had planned for Purim. That's what they're switching with each other. You see, the goal is to make sure everyone has a Suda. That's how he understands that Gemara. So okay, fine, we can deal with that in a moment we will. But he also has another point, which is Vesu, nira de lo ashkechan b'shum makom demikri manos elamidi demichli of demishti. It also seems the word manos you never find anywhere to mean anything besides for food or drink. The word manos always means a food item. Now I don't have enough bekias in Tanakh and Gemara to know whether he's right, but I'm going to take the Trumas Hadeshin's word for it. The word maneh apparently always refers to a food or drink item. And also, if you pay attention to the Rambam carefully, it sounds like the Rambam agrees to this. When the Rambam describes the mitzvah of mishlach manos, he says you need to give 2 manos shel basar, 2 portions of meat, or 2 types of dishes, a tavshil, or 2 different types of foods. V'nira dishtia b'chlal achila, and says the trumas hadeshin, I think also drinks are included in that, but that the Rambam spells out specifically food items in all of his examples. And when he describes matanos evyonim, he says you can give either money or food. So alma degabi mishloach manos savar davka midi demichli. So it sounds like specifically by mishloach manos, you need to give a food item specifically. So if you look in the Mishnah Berurah paskins based on this trumas hadeshin, you have to give food items. Trumas hadeshin comes up with this, maybe semi-chiddush, but the goal of mishloach manos is to fulfill the seudah. It's going to be very important for us. We'll see going forward. And once that's the case, it has to be a food item. If you give someone, a shirt that's very nice, but he's hopefully not eating a shirt for his seudah Purim, so that's not going to be sufficient. And that's how we pass. So if you're thinking about sending mishloach manos, whatever you're thinking about sending, make sure you have some food items in there. So that's one approach. There's another approach though, of the Manos Halevi. Who's the Manos Halevi? Manos Halevi is Rav Shlomo Alkabetz. He's a Kabbalist from the 1500s in Tzfat. Anyone know what he's the author of? He's the author of a famous poem.
Chadodi.
Very good. So Steve says Lechadodi. So Rav Shlomo Alkabetz is a Kabbalist. He wrote Lechadodi. He also wrote a Perush on the Megillah, on Megillas Esther, called the Manos Halevi. So it's not exactly clear if he was intending this as a halachic work. It's partly Kabbalistic and partly Perush, but the Chasam Sofer really liked this work, and the Chasam Sofer picked up on it, and he said, you look at the Sefer Manos Halevi, he gives a different reason for the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos. We'll jump to 6 for a moment. He says, this is the Chasam Sofer quoting or summarizing the Sefer Manos Halevi. Sefer Manos Halevi, Kasav she'atamu kidei laharbos hashalom v'hareus. What's the goal of Mishloach Manos? We're not just trying to help everyone fulfill their seudah. We're trying to increase shalom and reus. We're trying to increase friendship among Klal Yisrael. Hefech mirigiloso shel hatzar, the exact opposite of what the tsar, what Haman was ragil to say, what he would normally say, she'amar mifozar mifurad. When he describes Klal Yisrael, he describes them as spread out. Now, the way that means literally is that we just happen to be all over the 127 provinces. But the way which Chazal understood it is Perush, b'makom shiroi lios am echad, in a place that they're supposed to be like one nation. We're supposed to be, have Klal Yisrael is filled with machlokas. There's a lack. There's sinas chinam. There's problems. Lachein tiknu mishloach manos. So says the Manos Halevi, the goal of mishloach manos was to counteract what Haman's claim was. Haman's claim was that we're not such a, our people is spread out in the sense that we're not one unit. We're always fighting with each other. We aren't one team. So the goal of Mishloach Manos is to go and create friendship, is to go and create that sense of camaraderie, which was lacking in the times of Megillah, to kind of go against what Haman's claim against Klal Yisrael was. So totally different, nothing to do with Suda, but we're trying to go and increase reus. We're trying to increase friendship, make friends with each other. So if you look at what the Chasam Sofer is doing, why is he talking about all this? Because he's bothered by a very strange Ramah. The Ramah says, and the Pri Chadash gets all upset, how on earth, where did he get this from? There's no source for this. But the Ramah says, V'im sholech manos l're'ehu. Let's say I send mishloach manos, I've got my nice gift basket to my friend, V'hu eino rotze lekablam o mochlolo. And he says, sorry, I don't know, I don't trust your hechsher, I'm gluten-free. Whatever he says, much appreciated, but no thank you. I'm mochel, you don't need to worry, you give it to someone else. Whatever the issue is, says the Ramah, yatsa. You have fulfilled your mitzvah when you send mishloach manos, and your friend says, nah, keep it for yourself. So the Pri Chadash is all up in arms. He says, did you forget about the trumas hadeshin? The whole goal is that you're supposed to give so that someone can fulfill their suda. So if the guy says no thank you, so you haven't helped them fulfill their suda. You haven't helped them, with their Purim suda, and you gave them nothing. How could it be your yotzei the mitzvah? So the Chasam Sofer comes along and he says, I found the answer. The answer is that there's this Manos Halevi, which the Ramah must have subscribed to, which is that your goal with Mishloach Manos is just to increase friendship. So if I try and give you a gift and you say no thank you, so you still appreciate, and I still appreciate that I tried to give you something. Maybe you're gluten-free, and maybe for whatever you've got, extreme kashrus concerns. But at the end of the day, you recognize that we are trying to, that I made an effort to go and improve our relationship. So says the Chasam Sofer, that's sufficient to fulfill Mishloach manos yishrehu. Even if you don't actually give it, as long as the other person knows you tried to give it, that explains the Ramah. It happens to be this I didn't see anyone make note of until I heard a shir on this recently. But the Ramah, right, the same person who just wrote this halacha that you're yotze without sending to anyone, he also has a perush on the Megillah, which I don't know if too many people read, but he has a perush on the Megillah called the Mechir Yain, which he wrote when he was just 17. And he explains at the end of his sefer, why did he write this sefer called the Mechir Yain? He said because he and his father were exiles in poverty, and they didn't have money to fulfill Mishloach Manos Ishtre Ehu. And he really wanted to go and give his father a gift, but he didn't have any food items to properly do it. So he wrote this little, it's like a little pamphlet. It's like 50 pages, little 50-page pamphlet, kuntrus. And he says, I want to give this to fulfill my mitzvah, Mishloach Manos Ishtre Ehu, to go and fulfill that mitzvah. Why did he name the sefer this? Mechir Yain. So if you look in Yeshayahu, the pasuk in the beginning of Perek Nun Hey, the pasuk says, Hoi kol tzamei lechu l'mayim. Anyone who's thirsty, go and get water. V'asher ein lo kesef. And if someone has no kesef, and the pasuk continues, and the end of the pasuk is Mechir Yain v'chalal. So the phrase Mechir Yain is a reference to someone who doesn't have any money. Someone says, I don't have any money, that's why I'm naming this. I want to fulfill Mishloach Manos. I'm sending my father this kuntrus to fulfill my mitzvah. So that's very beautiful in that the Chasam Sofer seems to have been right. The Ramah thinks you can fulfill Mishloach Manos then with a sefer. I'm sure it was tough in exile, but no one's eating the sefer again, right? So it has nothing, the Ramah thought that it wasn't about the Seudah. It wasn't about trying to help someone have what to eat. I'm just trying to go and increase reus. I'm trying to increase friendship. I could give you anything, as long as what I'm giving you is something, chashuv, is something meaningful. That would be enough to go and fulfill your mitzvah. Now, again, the way we paskin is that you should be giving food items. We are machmir for the trumas hadeshin, but once we have this chakira, we can help us understand a lot more. So, for instance, the ksav sofer. We'll jump to the next Marimakom. The ksav sofer is the son of the chasam sofer. So, as a good son, he continued on his father's path of maintaining this chakira, and maybe we'll spell it out outside, and you guys can fill it in. He was asked the question: what if I send Mishloach Manos, but I don't tell the person who sent it? Whatever, this happens once in a while. You send Mishloach Manos, but you forgot to put the little signature on the inside. Beautiful thing, but you forgot to sign, Steve Antisovsky. So he doesn't know who sent it. So are you Yotze the mitzvah Mishloach Manos or not? That's what the Ksav Sofer was asked. So I'll let you guys give me an answer. What's the answer to that question?
Well, I think it's helping him fulfill Su'uda, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that he doesn't know where it's coming from, it's still helping him with the Suda, which was the first reason. For the second reason, I guess you would say it doesn't fully fulfill the second reason, like Shlomo Alkabetz, Shalom, because he doesn't even know who it came from. So there's no friendship factor there. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's how you would look at it. It depends by which reason you look at it.
Right. Beautiful. So we'll see it inside. We'll do it quickly. But Steve hit the nail on the head, right? So he says, well, let's go through the reasons. He says, L'taima de trumas hadeshin. I'm going to skip to I underlined my version. If you have the versions I sent out, there was no underlines at the time. But L'taima de trumas hadeshin, second line, the mitzvahs mikol makom k'dei lemalos chesaron, that the goal is just to go and fill, if someone has a need for the Suda, Misha Einlo, if someone doesn't have enough, Mistaber di Yotze. So you should be Yotze, Gam Kishen Chaver Yadeo Misha Shalach Lo. Who cares whether that person knows at the end of the day? Sof Kol Sof Higil Etachlis Hamechavin. You fulfilled the point of the mitzvah of ensuring that everyone has Suda. V'yesh mitzvah biyoser kein mitzvah tzedakah. This is an interesting point. He says maybe you're even doing a better mitzvah. The same way that by tzedakah, it's better with the person who's receiving doesn't know who gave to them because they're not embarrassed if they actually needed it. So to here, maybe it's better if they don't know about it, just like by tzedakah. Okay, there's what to discuss whether that part's true, but that's what the Ksav Sofer says. He says, however, skipping a line of alataima mishum chiba shalom v'reus, but according to the other tzad of Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, the Manus Halevi's reason that we're trying to increase chiba, and then he says. Jumping to Bivadai Eino Yotze, Aleph Yod. Bivadai Eino Yotze. For sure, you're not going to fulfill your mitzvah. The recipient doesn't know who sent him the Mishloach Manos. How's he supposed to feel closer with that person? He doesn't even know sent him. It doesn't bring to people feeling any closer to each other. And he finishes off that since we said the Ramah holds of this second reason, the Ramah who says that when I say no thank you to your gift, I'm still Yotze. So you see the Ramah holds of the second reason. So we have to be machmir for the second reason. And therefore he thinks you are not going to be Yotze, your mitzvah of Mishlach Manos Ish Ehu, because there was no increase in friendship over there. Yeah, go for it.
Can I say something? So if you look at these two reasons and the arrangement that they had to like switch off year by year, right? So that arrangement really fulfilled both these reasons, and I'm saying like that arrangement of eating by each other, it ensured that they each had enough every year for the Su'udah, right? And it also ensured the Reyos because they were together and they were eating together. So it seems like that arrangement fulfills the mitzvah.
Beautiful. So let's get back to it. So Steve says, let's go back to our original question, right? Rashi said they're switching off sudas year by year. So Beis Yosef says, I don't understand. You're not giving anything. How can you possibly fulfill your mitzvah? But now we already have precedent. Even if you don't give something, right? Like the Ramah says, maybe you could fulfill Mishlach Manos Ish Ehu if you at least fulfill the reasons for the mitzvah. So Steve's saying something which I didn't see anyone say, but you definitely could say it, which is that both reasons are fulfilled, even according to Rashi, right? Steve's saying you're eating the meals by each other, so for sure everyone has a meal. As long as everyone has a meal, it sounds like that should maybe fulfill that aspect. And furthermore, we're all hanging out, we're having a great meal, there's wine. Apparently, I'm not advocating for wine. See last year's shir on that topic, but it's a fun time. Everyone's getting close with each other. That's a fulfillment of Mishlach Manos, even though I don't give anything. I'm a guest at your house, but we're getting closer together. Maybe you can say that that's a fulfillment of the mitzvah. So I saw that second part. I saw someone emphasize, according to the second reason of getting closer. So we're getting closer. As long as we're getting closer, maybe you can explain that Rashi. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's still a little bit difficult. Why is it a little bit difficult? Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, because you can get closer without food.
Yeah, meaning you could do anything. Is it
Yes.
if I blow bubbles, I don't know, and do a little jig, and we laugh
Give a
together?
sheet.
Am I fulfilling Mishlach Manos Ish Ehu? Like there is some sort of specification to this mitzvah, you'd presume. Like we have to be doing something specific. Chazal didn't just say, "Be happy."
No, but it's the type of thing. Like if I'm invited to a meal, okay, one Shabbos, and then I'm having the person over the next Shabbos, and it happens all the time. It's customary to bring a bottle of wine or something, or to bring dessert. So a lot of times I'll make that, I'll say, something, I'm going to you, you're going to me. We just won't bring anything, and we'll be Yotze, each other. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the agreement we made. So it's the same type of thing here.
You're saying it's. Yeah, go Rabbi Schwartz.
You still need an action for the mitzvah. It's like not just the reason. Let's say the reason for lighting Shabbos candles that you have light. So you have lights around my room, so you won't light Shabbos candles, and you won't be doing mitzvahs. You'll be down to nothing. It's the same thing here. You still, even though you're fulfilling the reasoning of the mitzvah, you're not actually doing.
There is action, but there is action. You're having the person over.
Yeah, but the other person.
It's a whole thing. It's not like I'm sitting back, I'm not doing anything. I'm having the person over. I'm going to their house. It's not. I'm just giving another viewpoint.
So Steve, you should know. Someone said, I think it was Rabbi Mo, and I saw say like you said, and I didn't see. It's a tough Rashi, So what Rabbi Schwartz is saying, and I feel like, my gut reaction is the same. That like. If you don't have a specific surah of the mitzvah, I don't know how to, say it more precisely, but there has to be some sort of action which is mandated here, So it's true, we're having meals by each other, but at the end of the day, that's not what the mitzvah was, even if we have an arrangement that will switch off. So, there's what to discuss here. Dr. Gribitz, it looks like you're coming in to say something.
Yes, again, the whole idea of food is falling apart because you just say it's mitzvah of communicating or whatever you want. So if you bring a sheet or you bring a something else, a TV or whatever you want, is that going to fulfill the mitzvah?
Right. So it seems, according to the Ramah, right? The Ramah wrote the Sefer to give. The Ramah seems to have thought that maybe that would be sufficient.
Yes.
But there you're giving something, and I can understand that because the pasuk says mishloach manos. You have to give manos. So if we translate that loosely as a thing, a gift. So okay, so you're doing what the pasuk said to you to do. But just be a guest by someone's home, that's harder for me to swallow. But at least we can, we have the start to an answer for sure through understanding that we're trying to just bring people closer together. Good. So let's see if we can also answer our other question, right? What the Ritva disagreed with all these other Rishonim. The Ritva said, if you're Bill Gates, or choose your other favorite, extremely wealthy person, Elon Musk. And you give just a jug of wine and a $50 gift certificate to a steakhouse, a nice piece of steak. So the Ritva says, no, that's not sufficient. Now, why wouldn't that be sufficient? At the end of the day, you've got a delicious meal. You have a steak and a jug of wine for your Suda of Purim, right? But now we understand that
it doesn't fulfill the Reyehu part.
Right, the Reyes, right, exactly. Meaning
the Reyes part,
have
right.
been concerned not about the meal, but are you creating friendship? And at the end of the day, if the most wealthy person on the planet or in all of Bavel sends you a $100 gift card, you don't feel like he really likes you so much. Okay, so you fulfilled your mitzvah, yasher koyach, but I feel like I'm garbage if I thought we were close and that's all you're willing to give me. So then he sends a whole cow. Okay, now we're talking. You send a whole third-born cow and a few jugs of wine. Now we're friends. Now you can fulfill Mishlach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu. I'm going to let you know there's at least like 13 nafkaminas, like the number of questions you can kind of split like this between the two reasons. So I saw one sefer which brought 13 nafkaminas. Not all of them are so convincing. Some of them were and some of them aren't. Maybe we'll just do outside because we have 4 minutes. I'll give you another one. The Aruch HaShulchan discusses a case where, let's say I'm away from home. I'm regularly in the Heights, but I'm off on some Chabad mission in the Ukraine, who knows? And my wife says, oh my gosh, Yoni has to fulfill mitzvah mishlach manos yishle'ehu. So she sends on my behalf to someone, she takes from our home and she says, I'm going to fulfill Yoni's mitzvah for him, but I don't have a phone, so she didn't tell me. So basically, Shimon's away from home. Reuben sends on his behalf to fulfill the mitzvah of Mishlach Manos. So Aruch HaShulchan says, no dice over there. Now, this one's a little harder to get, meaning at the end of the day, you did help with the person's, whoever the recipient is, Su'uda was helped. But the way they explain it is that the reyes has to be in both directions. Both the recipient has to appreciate they got a gift from Jacob, from whoever, from Dr. Gribitz. But Dr. Gribitz and Jacob also have to know that they gave a gift. They're not going to feel closer to the recipient if they don't even know that they gave them something. It has to be a bi-directional sense of increase in friendship. So Aruch HaShulchan has this idea, the giver has to know who they gave to. If they didn't know that they gave, that's not going to be sufficient. I'll put out there that Rav Asher Weiss has a piece. Rav Asher Weiss, posted for Sharei Tzedek, and is very involved in modern Orthodox psakim. I believe the OU right now follows the psakim of Rav Hershel Schachter and Rav Asher Weiss. So he's big stuff. He lives in Israel, but he thinks that this whole shir we've given is just putting out there for honesty's sake, that this whole shir we've given is incorrect. He says the Manos Halevi, Rav Shlomo Alkabitz, he writes Lichadodi. He doesn't write halacha. He was giving a nice reason for the mitzvah. Okay, it's a nice reason. It's hashkafically nice, good for Dvar Torahs, but at the end of the day, he says the Ramah is a halachist. No one's ever heard of Rav Shlomo Alkabitz until the Chasam Sofer kind of pulls him out of left field. So don't tell me that the reason behind Mishlach Manos is whatever this Manos Halevi says. And he tries very, very hard to answer all of our questions and say, even if you say, really the real reason is to go and help with everyone's Su'udah, you can still somehow answer all the questions. I'll be honest, I thought it was very difficult to answer the questions the way that he tried to answer them. I think much more convincingly, like we said, the Ramah literally wrote a sefer to go and give his Mishloach Manos. So it sure doesn't seem like the Ramah thought that it has to go and assist with the Su'udah. But I'm putting it out that Rav Asher Weiss thought that this whole Chakira we made and increasing rayos, he didn't like it one bit. So
the truth of the matter is, like the Shloch Manos today, it really has nothing to do with the Suda. You know, like no one uses that food for the Suda, you know, and a lot of times it just piles up at the door and then you come home and you just see who sent, you know, and it's junk food, you give it to the doorman after the fact, you know, it seems very disconnected.
Steve, I'm not sending you any this year.
What did he say?
He said, I'm not sending you anything this year.
No, I'm serious though. It doesn't seem like really the way we have it today, it really has much to do with the Suda.
100%. So I didn't make this point, but I should have, which is that a bunch of poskim and my Rabbi Rav Hershel Schachter is amongst them, thinks at least Mishloach Manos Yisrael, there's your mitzvah is really to give to one person, at the very least. So he thinks, and it's not just him, many others think, and people don't do this so much, but he thinks that you should make sure at least one of the gifts you give is something the person could likely have at their Suda. One of the things you give should be a bottle of wine, should be, maybe, again, I'm not going to advocate for a bottle of wine, but a piece of kugel, hot dog or something like that, like something which, now chances are that'll get thrown out also, but at least something, you give candy, no one's eating candy at their Suda, they're sick of most of the chocolates are milchig and people are having fleishigs. You know, there's a thousand reasons people don't eat the little things you give for Mishloach Manos. You should have at least to one person, you give a nice food, at least fit for a meal. And that's because to fulfill the idea of truman sudeshian, it's hard to understand why everyone, gives nice little candies.
Also, are you Yotzei if you like do it through the shul, like a lot of shuls on the Upper West Side, like they have this fundraiser thing, you know, you give $100, you get 20 names, you put down, you put their name down and they get a basket with a bunch of names that donated, or for $360, you could give to everyone in the shul, that type of thing.
Right. So I saw a discussion about that. The answer is if the gift bag is big enough, if you have, let's say 10 gifts and 5 people sign up to give that gift bag, so then we'll look at it as each person gave 2 things and you would be Yotzei. But the way most of these things work is that there's 3 or 4 things which are being given, and 20 people are signed on to the gift. So you individually didn't give enough then to fulfill your mitzvah. I saw some people say you were Yotzei, but I wouldn't rely on that. I would try and give your own separate gift.
The problem if they deliver before Purim, or if they deliver Purim at night. And
Right. That's another. If they give it before Purim, there's not even a question. You're not going to fulfill your mitzvah then.
At night or whatever, so it's not good.
Right. I saw actually, if you want a nice chumrah for this Purim, the Brisker Rav apparently, whenever he get Mishloach Manos, if it was close to Shkia, like he'd get by the door, so he would open up every single one to see who had sent it to him, so that he wouldn't delay until after Purim. And most of us, you get 10 things by your door and you don't need all that food. So you check after Purim's over and after everything's over, see who gave it to you. But he said, if the whole goal is to increase reyus, if we have to be machmir for both reasons. So if I don't know who gave to me on Purim, maybe that person wasn't Yotzei the mitzvah. I don't think that that's true that there weren't Yotzei the mitzvah, but he thought, maybe you should be machmir, try and make sure you know who sent it to you. Read all the names on the gift basket from the shul or whatever it is to, try and fulfill both of these reasons as much as possible. So I think we're actually giving, I told my wife, we were preparing for this, I was preparing for this year. I said, let's give a few pigs and blankets to, some people. They're going to get thrown out, I'm sure, but we'll feel better about ourselves that we gave some Seudah food for Purim. Okay, that's Mishloach Manos in a nutshell. Yeah,
So
Jacob, go for it.
I want to say two things. First of all, it's ironic that the Rambam says that mana is food, and the Shlomo Alkabetz's name for the Sefer is Manas Halevi, which says you don't have to give food. That's the first
That
thing.
is, in fact, ironic. That's funny. I didn't notice that.
Second of all, this whole notion of shlichus, so maybe that was also one of the chiddush. When one person gives food to, they're just exchanging food. There's no shlichus here. I don't know if there's any kind of point in that, or there's any.
Good. Yeah, so I didn't touch on that topic.
Right,
The answer is the Mishnah Berurah thinks it's a nice chumrah to try and do shlichus because of the phrase mishloach manos, makes it sound like you should have an intermediary person. But it's clear from the Gemara, like you pointed out, if they're just switching su'udas, I mean, definitely Rashi didn't think that was so important.
Right.
They just have someone over. And the way most poskim even disagree with that Mishnah Berurah for whatever reason, and they think, generally we have a rule of mitzvah bo yoser mi b'shlucho. It's better to do a mitzvah yourself than through a shaliach. So there's this debate, whether a shaliach is preferable or not. If you want to be super machmir, you can do one with a shliach and one without a shliach. But whatever you do is going to be just fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's Rabbi.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Looking forward to seeing whoever I see this week at Shul, and if not this week, then next week. It's Hashem. Have a good one.
Bye.